Terrapins are beginning to hatch on Sandy Neck. To learn more about that, we chat with Natural Resource Officer Sean Cordes on this episode of Barnstable Today. It's Friday, August 26th, 2016. I'm Sarah Mannel.
Sean, we're talking a little bit about terrapins today. What can you tell me about what the terrapin situation is like out on Sandy Neck right now?
Yeah, so this is probably one of my favorite times of the year here at Sandy Neck. Not only because we're getting into the fall, which is just great weather-wise, everything else, but also our terrapins are starting to hatch. So all those nests that were laid in June and July, all the little hatchlings are emerging and making their way to the marsh.
So tell me a little bit, for those, Sean, who may not know a lot about the Terrapin program, what kind of involvement do you and the rest of the staff have in kind of helping these critters along in terms of monitoring their nests and finding them a place to nest?
Mm-hmm. So the one thing I do want to mention first is that the diamondback terrapin is actually a threatened species here in Massachusetts. So Sandy Neck is their northernmost range in the whole country. And it's one of the last strongholds in the state of Massachusetts where they have a sort of steady population of nesting turtles. And so because of that, we do a lot of work to try and protect them. Historically, their numbers have dwindled because of habitat loss, and actually they were harvested by humans, both the eggs and the adults, for food for a while. And because their numbers dropped so low, they didn't have many adults left to nest, and the predation has been bad. So we go out, we have a turtle monitor, and actually goes out and finds the nest in the summertime and puts plastic crates over them, these caps, that act as deterrents for predators, so it prevents them from being dug up by coyote and fox and raccoon and anything else that might be looking for a nice, easy meal. The other thing that we do is our Terrapin Head Start program. So, believe it or not, some of the nests are actually laid in the Marsh Trail, which is still technically an active road on the backside of Sandy Neck. It's a sandy road, and so terrapins find that to be a suitable habitat for their nests, and these nests would otherwise get run over. So we actually uncover those nests, relocate them to a safe area, and monitor them until they hatch. And then we'll raise them for a bit and distribute them out to schools and a couple other organizations where they'll raise them over the winter time. So instead of going into the marsh and sort of not doing much all winter, they're in warm water, eating a lot of food, and they'll grow to be about the size of a 3-year-old turtle by the early summer, where they'll get released back into the marsh.
So what happens after the mother turtle lays the eggs? Does she just kind of create the nest, lay the eggs, and then go on her way, and then those little baby turtles are all on their own? How does that work?
Yep. So with the turtles and a lot of other reptiles, there's no parental care involved. So they'll dig a hole in the sand basically, and they'll deposit their clutch of eggs and bury it back up, pat it down, and make their way back to the marsh. So that nest actually relies on the heat of the sun to warm it up, to warm up the sediment, and incubate it over the course of the season. And one thing that we're finding this year is that a lot of these nests are hatching out really early, much earlier than usual. And it's probably because we've had such an incredible summer. Just about every single day has been a hot beach day, and so those nests have been really well incubated. And, most likely they've just gotten the energy that they've needed, and so they're ready to go a little early.
So what happens once those turtles, the eggs start to hatch? Take me through the process. I mean, obviously you guys are out there monitoring it, but when it's time for the turtle to break free out of his egg and kind of crawl through the sand, what happens? What happens then?
Yeah, so that's sort of only half the battle is getting to that point for some of those small turtles. So when they hatch out, they're about the size of a quarter and maybe even less at that point. So they have a little egg tooth connected to their nose at that point to break through the shell, sort of a soft, leathery shell. And they'll slowly crawl up out of the sand, in that area where their nest was, the soil is pretty hard packed still, so it makes it easier for them to be able to emerge from the sand. And then at that point, depending upon how far the adult laid the nest in the beginning, they have to backtrack that entire way on their way back into the marsh. So for a tiny little turtle that big, it's a pretty grueling journey. And you'll see, even if they make it to that point where they hatch out, there's still a lot of predators that would go after them, including a few different kinds of birds, crows, gulls, great blue herons, as well as the coyote, fox, raccoon. So ultimately, in the natural state, only about 15 out of every 100 turtles are going to make it to the marsh, and only about 1 in every 100 turtles are going to make it to adulthood. So
wow.
It's a very low number.
Yikes. So what do you guys do to intervene? I mean, I can only imagine this arduous journey, right? You have to take your brand new hatched turtle, you're only a tiny little size of a quarter, you've got to walk this epic journey. Odds are all against you. So what do you guys do to kind of help? Obviously, the threatened species, you want to bring up their population. So when do you intervene and help them along?
Mm-hmm. So we actually, for a lot of it, we try and keep it natural and allow them to emerge and make their way on their own as best we can, but there's certainly a lot of monitoring still going on. So if we come across some of the hatched nests, we can help transfer them to the marsh, so you don't have to expend all of that energy to get there. The other issue or concern is that because we do have that marsh trail there as well, they can get stuck in those tire ruts and keep going in the wrong direction. And while we do limit traffic in the main area where the turtles are, there are still some vehicles going through. So we want to make sure we clear them out of there and safely relocate them into the marsh. And then obviously our Head Start program, we work a little more intricately with those ones, and they get a lot more care and special attention throughout the winter time.
Are there certain specific turtles that are kind of marked for the Head Start program, or is it just a percentage that you take? How do you determine which turtles are going to kind of go into the tanks and get that extra care?
Mm-hmm. So those are the ones that are from nests that we've relocated. So the ones that were in nests that would otherwise be run over by vehicles on the trail. And usually the ratio that they hatch out, it just happens to work out that it's the right number that we distribute out to classrooms and to organizations to help us raise.
So how long does it take, Sean, a terrapin to reach maturity? So to go from this little tiny quarter-sized adorable creature to a big viable turtle, and how long are they expected to live?
Yeah, so it actually takes quite a while when you think about that tiny little turtle, anywhere from 7 to 10 years to reach sexual maturity and to be able to reproduce themselves. So getting to that point is certainly the most difficult part of their life. Once they reach that point, they don't have a lot of issues as far as predators go, and so they can live a really long time, anywhere from 40 to 60 years probably on average, and most likely there are turtles that are older than that out there in the wild. And what's interesting about how they sort of survive is that we talked about only 1 in every 100 making it, out to reach adulthood. But if you think about a big nesting female's lifespan, if they reach maturity at 10 years old and they live to be 60, there's 50 years that they have the potential to lay nests, and each nest contains 10 to 20 eggs. So if that turtle is able to live, its entire lifespan, there's a pretty good chance it's going to help to restore the population in the long run.
Well, be sure to tune in to our hour-long news program, Barnstable This Morning, that airs weekdays at 8 a.m. On Monday's show, we will chat with Barnstable High School Principal Patrick Clark. We'll talk with Town Manager Mark Ells. Plus, we'll have all the news and information you need. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Mannel.